Good morning, Westeros!
Is this me? Is this when I go? And welcome to the Morning Throners podcast.
I'm Nelson.
I'm Jeff.
I'm Glow.
And I'm Kyle.
We're the fucking Morning Throners.
Fucking cow.
All right, and welcome back to the Morning Throners podcast. This time, we're covering Chapter 2, Catelyn 1. As always, I want to remind everybody that we can be found on YouTube or Spotify.
Like and follow.
So check us out there and tell your friends.
Tell your friends.
In this chapter, real quick synopsis, Cat basically visits Ned in the Godswood after the beheading and drops a bomb on him. So let's get right into it.
Kyle, how do you feel about Catelyn? Let's just start there, quick. Give you a quick feeling.
So I mean,
knee-jerk feeling of Catelyn.
The only new character.
so I don't think she really did too much here. Like, she was kind of talking shit on the Godswood, on Ned's Godswood, you know?
Yeah.
It's her
Fucking
husband.
bitch.
She should probably be a little nicer about it, right?
Well, obviously she doesn't do much. It's a 4-page chapter.
But she doesn't like this shit. That's pretty much much what I'm getting her.
I don't know
Fuck
if it's as
this
much
place.
doesn't like or just feels uncomfortable, but somewhere on that spectrum.
It literally says, first sentence, never like this Godswood.
All right, you got it.
I don't. I don't like her, and I don't want to kind of sway Kyle in any which way. But she's probably, if not my least favorite character, my second least favorite character.
I think I think that's probably the opinion Kyle will have after this book, but I think you will actually appreciate her more on a reread.
Debatable.
She's not gonna be your favorite character, but I felt the same way on my first read. I was like, man, this girl sucks. But on a reread,
I mean, on this reread, the one chapter further along on the book, I totally agree with Jeff. I started disliking her hard.
on the rereads, all right, maybe
She's
I'm
a
wrong.
huge bitch in the future, and that's the way I'll leave it.
All right, yeah, let's not get into it because of Kyle. Let's see if we can get one episode without spoiling Kyle and anything. Glow.
And Kyle might not think she's a bitch. We'll find out.
We'll see. Yeah, so that's Kyle's right. Starts off, she's going to see, or I said it, going to see Ned in the Godswood. Anything else about Cat? Overall opinions, Kyle?
Yeah, I mean, she just talked to Ned for a little bit and kind of gave him some news.
Real short chapter. It'll probably be a short episode for the podcast.
The best part about this chapter is that it's 4 pages long, and that's all we have to hear Cat fucking stummer about.
All right, so I guess we'll just get right into it. The first thing she starts talking about, and I think this is again just kind of like a world building chapter. Not much happens, kind of just like teaching us some stuff about like how Westeros is. First off, we get the difference between the Godswood, which is what the Northmen like kind of worship for their like it's like their sept or their like church.
Well, it's also their god. It's their deity as well.
Yeah. Well, we
Right.
don't really get the idea of like what they worship to in this chapter. Just that like the Godswood for the Northmen is like a church or like the sept for the people in the south.
Yeah,
Like they don't
okay.
have septs. And it even says that Ned built her a sept when they got married because they didn't have one.
But even like when you talk about the sept and the 7 gods for the Southerners, they have names for them. They have the mother and the father and the warrior. The old gods are just the old gods, and
Yeah.
it's
So what-
and it's the trees. So you don't
What
even.
is a sept?
it's like a
It's
church.
a church.
Yeah.
It's
Church,
a worship,
okay.
place of worship.
Synagogue for our Jewish friends out there.
Thank you.
A mosque?
A mosque
What
for
about
our
a
Muslim
mosque?
friends.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we don't really learn too much about either of the religions here. All we hear is kind of exactly what Jeff said, that they worship faceless gods, is what they call them. And that, well, the Northmen worship faceless gods and they go to the Godswood to pray, versus the Southern people, which is where Cat's from, who worship in septs and they worship the 7 gods. Well, again, we'll learn more about both these later.
Which I don't understand why she calls them faceless if they're carved into trees.
Well, like,
I mean, there's.
Well, that's what Nelson just said. Like he didn't think the tree was actually who they're worshiping.
yeah, I don't think they're like worshiping the trees. I
It's
think
like a way for them.
it's like almost like the
a
cross.
symbol.
Like if you think about like Christianity or like Catholicism, like they don't worship the cross, but it's like it's like the symbol of the religion, kind of.
I'm picking up what you're putting down.
Something that's kind of weird though is she explains the pool in front of the weirwood tree, and she says it's black and cold. Don't we know that to be like one of the the water's warm there? They always go swimming.
I don't know. I don't think so. We hear again, not a major spoiler, but we hear like in a future chapter that Winterfell is kind of like a
On a hot
on a
hot
hot
spring.
Yeah,
spring,
on
and
hot
they like
springs,
there's like
yeah.
hot water flowing through the walls, which is why it's not super like inhabitable. But I don't know if we ever hear anything about this pool. Again, maybe that's something we can talk about after
yeah.
when Kyle's gone.
Let's just remember that she called it cold. Maybe it's because she
Yeah,
never touched
black
it. Maybe
cold.
it's like a different cold, like not physically cold, but like emotionally cold.
Yeah.
Like it's just so black, it's depressing.
And like again, Kyle, you read this probably about a week ago, but like what kind of picture are you getting of the Godswood like in your head here?
It looks like it's probably just a real tight, dense old forest. Nothing on the ground except roots.
Yeah. And it's like
Yeah.
the trees are so tight together that overhead the branch she says like the branches are
No light
woven
comes
together.
through. It's probably dark. Yeah.
Yeah. Nothing can even get through. And when she comes up to Ned, first thing Ned asks every time, and she says that this is like something she really appreciates about him. And he always asks like, "Where are the kids? How are the kids doing?" And she tells him. And again, we kind of know that this is the same day as the beheading because he's there cleaning his sword. But we get a picture from her that the kids have all just like met the pups, and they're all like super stoked about it. Even the girls, everybody except for the baby, who's like a little scared. And
Which is understandable. He's like 3 years old.
yeah, but that's not understandable for Ned. Ned's like he needs to fix his
Rick.
Yeah, it just tells you how cold Ned
Winter is
is.
coming.
yeah. So this is
Winter could be coming in 9
He does
years,
say
Ned.
that.
He could be
He
a
does say
fucking 3 times as old as he is right now. Like, grow the fuck up.
yeah. So this is where we
Still
get,
coming.
and then she even says when he says winter's coming, she says something like the Starks have like the weirdest house words.
Yeah, it's like compares like all the others, like how people have like prideful ones and all
Yeah.
that, and then
So Kyle,
just Starks is
having been spoiled on Game of Thrones, I'm sure you've heard winter's coming.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, like "Winter is Coming" was like the tagline for like that show for a long time.
Yeah. And the point that Kat makes out here, she says like it's all like the Stark words are like a warning, whereas
Yeah.
so like I'll give you the Tully words where she's from. It's family, duty, honor. Like the Aaron's, I think, is flying high. So they're all kind of like
Descriptions of what they...
or like ways
Hold.
to live, kind of
They're
like
like boastful and yeah, this not dire. Like
Yeah.
this is
not like a warning exactly.
yeah.
that's also kind of a way to live though too. Like yo, prep for winter, dog.
Yeah, always ready, kind of like Boy Scouts motto: be prepared. Stark's honor, literally Stark's honor.
Yo, dog,
Be
you
prepared.
might want to be prepping for winter.
That I wanted to make that the title of this podcast, like getting ready for winter, winds of winter to come out. But there's another guy who put out like a series called Prepping for Winter, where he reads all the sample chapters from that book.
Asshole.
I mean, those videos.
What's his
are awesome.
name?
That
What's
guy's
his
awesome.
name? Let's
Preston
get after
Jacobs,
him.
shout out. Check out Preston Jacobs on YouTube. If that guy
Preston's
is
stealing our name.
that guy's super in depth. Like
Can we
way
give him?
more in depth than
Can
me.
we give him an @ on this?
I just did at Preston Jacobs on
Yeah,
YouTube.
but like on our tweet too. Let's see if we can get noticed.
All right.
That sounds a little
ride
a
his
little
ride
too
his
much.
coattails.
Yeah, man.
See if he wants to throw a bone here or there.
Yeah. So they keep talking again. Nothing major. He's like, you would have been proud of Bran. He was good watching the guy get killed today. And she like talks a little bit about ice as he's cleaning it. It's 400 years old. It's a fucking old ass sword. And she's like, but it's as sharp as the day it was made. And we don't know why it's named Ice, but she says its name is even older than the sword is, and it comes from the Age of Heroes. I'm wondering, like, does that mean there was a different sword called Ice, and then all of a sudden
Probably.
they're like, they get another sword, like, oh, this one's better. Let's just change the name.
There
Like,
had
let's
to be
move the name.
something like either another sword or somebody that was wielding it, nicknamed Ice, or you know what I mean.
Something like that. Yeah.
There was no. That's the only way the name could have been born before the sword.
Well, so it was probably like a legend of ice, and then somebody made one. You know what I'm saying?
Like there was like a story, like there was a great
story
warrior
of
with a sword called Ice,
Yeah,
something like that.
I like that.
probably.
And then they got
There you
this
go.
cool sword, and they like kind of just stuck it to the sword in the legend because it kind of fit.
Yeah. Let's go with that.
Yeah. That's pretty sweet. And it probably
Not
makes
bad,
it probably
not
makes
bad.
more sense than what we were saying too, that they transferred the name of the sword, which is what I was thinking, and I was like, that doesn't make any sense. How can the name be older than the sword? But that would explain it. So then they're talking about the deserter and the Night's Watch kind of in general, and how Ned's brother is in the Night's Watch, Benjen, and like he's been getting like not like frequent updates, but last time they talked, like yeah, it's bad. They've had like a lot of deserters. I think Ned said that this is the 4th deserter he's killed this year, and that the Watch has less than 100 men now. And she,
Which we don't really know much about the
or
Watch,
watch it less than 1,000 men, not 100.
less than 1,000. That's kind of like, we
Teeny
don't know.
tiny.
We don't know how massive, I guess, right now that the Watch needed to be.
Yeah,
But like, if you were just thinking like 1,000 men,
that seems like a pretty big group of people.
it's
to
not
me.
a solid. That's a solid number.
Yeah. Ned says like, oh, it's not just range or deserters where they're losing people. It's on rangings too. And what's Kat say? You guys
Who
remember?
is it? The wildlings? Like, or who is it?
She says
Yeah,
like,
is it the
oh, is it
wildlings?
wildlings? And he's like, Ned
Mance
kind of
Raider, who else?
kind of going back
Who
to
else?
last
you
time
stupid girl.
where he like doesn't believe in any like signs or anything. He's like he doesn't care about the direwolf.
Any of the
He's
old
just like-
tales.
It's like obviously it's wildlings. There's no such thing as White Walkers. Some people say they never like the Maester Lewin says they never existed, and even if they did, they say that they've been gone for 8,000 years with the children of the forest.
I feel like Ned's one of the guys who, if he's not seeing with his own eyes, he doesn't
Like
really
Descartes.
believe it until that moment. It's
You
it's
remember
like
reading
not even
Descartes'
there.
freshman year? I think therefore I am had to prove everything for himself. Like dissected a pig heart because he didn't believe that how hearts worked until he saw it for himself. It's kind of like Ned. He won't believe it just because you tell it to him. He wants to see it for himself.
You actually read those?
That one was all right. I like the philosophical ones.
Philosophical?
Yeah.
My philosophy class was too early in the morning. I missed a bunch of them.
Snoozing through it.
Yeah.
And then this is when she drops the bomb on him. Like the only actual news of this chapter that's not kind of just like world building.
We do get the second mention of Mance Raider.
We get second
Yeah.
Master of Mance Raider.
He's nothing to fear.
Ned says that? Yeah, Ned says
Yeah.
he has to ride. He might have to ride north and to
No,
fight.
he says Mance Raider is nothing to fear. Nothing for us to fear.
But doesn't he say he might like if the watch
He
keeps
says
going this way, he might have to ride
Yeah.
north.
Call the
We may
banners
need
and
to
ride
call the
north,
banners,
yeah.
Yeah. So then she drops the bomb. John Aaron's dead, and like Kyle again. I don't know if you remember because it's been like a week or so since you read it, but did you like when she like explains this like relationship between John and herself and her sister and Ned? Did you like actually understand what was going on here? This is one of the parts where they just kind of like throw a lot of names at you, and unless you're really taking your time picking it apart, it kind of doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I definitely glossed over it.
So
my
like
first
wasn't
read.
he like Ned's like mentor or something? And then he ended up marrying his wife's sister?
Yes.
Yeah. So basically, Ned and the guy who's king now were both like when they were both kids. I'm thinking like Rob's age, somewhere between like Rob and Bran's age.
I'm going younger. I think like
Yeah, I think
11
they
years
started
old,
young. Like,
maybe 10 years old.
Yeah. So they get sent to live with John Aaron,
Yeah.
who lives in a different area. We'll find out more about that later. It doesn't really matter now. And then something happens.
So was he like 13 then?
Did they say his age?
No, probably not, but I was
Oh,
just talking about how young everybody is in this book. That was all I was
I'm gonna say he's almost probably close to his young 20s by the time.
that would make sense, yeah.
yeah. So this is something that they don't really make sense of here. That John is like a little bit older than him. Like I think he is to Ned as Ned is to Theon. How like Theon's 19, Ned's probably like 35, 40. I think when
Right.
Ned was there, John Aaron was like kind of their father figure, and him and Rob were the ones who were like buddy playing around.
Definitely.
And that kind of explains why Ned gets a little giddy, like towards the end when he hears Ned's coming or Robert's coming.
Rob's coming, yeah.
That's like your best friend.
Yeah, who you haven't seen in however long.
No matter,
he's been
yeah,
king for.
there's like decades.
Yeah,
So-
what do you say, 9 years, I think?
I think something like that. And yeah, and so the other thing that Kyle said that I just want to clarify is so John, after Mad King demands that John Aaron give up Ned and Robert, and he refuses, there's the little rebellion, and then after the rebellion is when John Aaron marries Lysa Tully, who is sister to Catelyn Tully, who's Ned's wife, Cat from the one in this chapter. So that's when they kind of become brothers. So like he was always kind of his father figure, and then they become like brothers by marriage. So that's why he's like upset that this guy died, because he was real close to this guy.
Yeah, and I don't know if he ever actually looked at him as a brother. Maybe like, oh, well, you're now my brother-in-law, but
Yeah, still like father figure.
the
mostly.
guy basically raised him. So I don't.
And it tells you that they, at least Robert respected him because he made him, when Robert becomes king, he makes him hand of the king, which is like basically like the vice president, if not having more power than the vice
Made
president.
who hand of the king?
John Aaron, the guy who just died.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Do they say that in this chapter?
Yeah, I think so. I'm pretty sure. Then they say that's when she says that Robert is coming north to Winterfell, and this is when like kind of he gets all giddy, and he's like, "Oh yeah, like what are we gonna do? We got to prepare. It's been like forever since a king has come to Winterfell. Like how many people does he have with him? We're gonna have to have food, all that stuff." Oh, I forgot this, but the first thing after he finds out about John Aaron is he asks about Kat's sister.
Yeah.
Like, how's Lysa and her son? So we find out that Lysa, Kat's sister, had a son with Robert Aaron. And she says, oh, they went back to the Eyrie, which is where John Aaron was from, which implies that they were probably staying with John Aaron and the king at King's Landing beforehand.
Yeah. Which would make sense without, suspecting anything. The husband died. You probably bury him back where he was from. The whole king caboodle.
Yep. So we find out, the last thing that really we find out is that with the king is coming like a ton of people. I think he said 100 knights with everybody that knights bring with them, plus like probably twice.
At least.
Yeah, and then like twice as many free riders, just like random soldiers, I guess. And
half again. So it'd be half as many.
Oh, no,
right?
I think half again means like 150%.
Okay.
So like that many plus half of it.
Okay.
And then we find out that with them is coming the queen, obviously, and her brothers. And this is where we find out that Ned has kind of like, the Starks have a little bit of hostility with the queen's family. And we don't learn much more about it, so let's not say anything about that for Kyle, but...
Well, I do know everybody hates Cersei in the show.
Yeah.
And
you also don't know that she's like the hottest girl in the world.
Yeah. Even more so in the book than in the show. And then I think the very last thing we get is that Tommen, like, Seven, who's the youngest, like Ned says, like, oh, like she's bringing the children with them. Like the youngest was still at their teat, and she says 7, the same age as Bran.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's basically all we get. I think the last thing is, I think I've said the last thing like 4 times now, but I just keep remembering little things. Benjen, who is the guy we heard is Ned's brother at the wall. Ned's like, we got to get him back down to see Robert. So you kind of get the picture that they were probably all buddy. Ned and his brothers, Robert. So he's like, yeah, bring him back. Make sure he gets back down here for the feast.
It kind of makes you wonder where Benjen, like, warded or squired when he was a kid.
I was just thinking that too. Like, where was he during the whole Brandon and what was his dad's name? Rickard? I think it's Rickard.
Yeah, like we don't really know anything about the rest of the Stark family right now. Just Ned and his kids.
Yeah, and not even all of them.
Yeah, we've only met Bran so far. Bran and Rob and John.
And a mention of Rickon.
And Arya. They mentioned them all at some point.
Yeah, talking about the
Arya.
wolves. They said Arya was really excited, and even like Sansa was being chivalrous or something. But yeah, short chapter, not much going on, kind of just like some world building. Next week is Dany. First Dany chapter, fan favorite.
Daenerys.
Anything else to say about this chapter, Kyle? Or anybody? On the spoiler-free version?
Let's just all be glad that it's over and we get to move on to another character.
Okay, well, if you guys have already read and want to stick around and hear a little spoiler discussion, how some of this stuff relates to the later books, just listen to the second half of the podcast, and where Jeff, Glow, and I will continue, but we're letting Kyle go now. Thanks, Kyle.
See you, Kyle.
Thanks, Kyle. Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert!
Alright, now that Kyle is gone, we are going to the spoiler section of this episode of Catelyn 1. We'll be talking about bringing up some points that happen further along in the story and discussing some other things. So now that Kyle's gone, we're free to talk and not get yelled at like me.
Yeah.
Yes. Again, nothing real short chapters, so probably not much to get into, but we'll we'll just kind of talk our way through it and see what we got, if there's anything.
So first thing I wanted to point out, I didn't know if this is acceptable to bring up in front of Kyle, was the description of the weirwood. It says it's bone white with red leaves, and then Ghost is also white with red eyes.
Yeah, so there's some stuff that, while like that is probably okay to bring up with Kyle, I feel like the fact, again, that's not a spoiler, it's said in this chapter, but I feel like the act of us like pointing it out that there's importance to it might be kind of spoilery. So that's, again, I would just say err on the side of, we have a second part of the podcast for a reason, let's just talk about it there. So yeah, good call.
You know what would have been cool now that we just finished what's it called, Night of Seven Kingdoms, if Ghost only had one eye.
Yeah, a little blood raven-y.
That would have been sweet.
That would have been, yeah. Well, I think at some point,
I mean, because that
John
would even
almost lost an eye. He's probably not going to lose one.
right. That would even like maybe Ghost was being warged in the whole time, like protecting John as a Targaryen or whatever. But
I almost kind of think that like all the wolves are getting warged in to by like Blood Raven or some other figure a lot of the time. So like, you know what I mean? So it doesn't really make sense that it's the white and red eye thing that signals that.
Yeah, I feel like we never. Maybe like Blood Raven's just such a good warger that there's never any conflict between like when Bran is trying to warg into Summer or whatever the fuck.
Yeah.
Summer. Is it Summer?
Yep.
Yeah. We don't know much about warging other than when did we learn about warging? The prologue of a chapter?
Well, we get the prologue of A Dance with Dragons. Is from the point of view of Varamir Sixskins.
Yeah, I mean that's when we learn the most about what's going on. In
I think probably we learn about warging through Bran. I think Arya might be the first one to be warging. Like she has wolf dreams, but at the point we just assume it's dreams and that she's not warging.
Yeah, but
Bran
not to the fact where like they're fighting with the other person's mind for control over.
Oh yeah, that's the first one. That might be I think the first one is in Bran. I don't know. Yeah,
I mean,
it's got to be in Bran. In Storm of Swords, Bran takes over Hodor.
He can see like Hodor, like scared or something like that in his mind. Didn't he say that?
Yeah, and the Storm of Swords that's where they're in the tower cell, like up in the tower when Jon comes south of the wall and Hodor starts freaking out and Bran works into him, and he can say that he can feel Hodor like being scared and like hiding in a corner or whatever.
Right.
Yeah, but back to the Weirwood. So we kind of talked about this a little bit, and again, I skirted around it. I'm not sure if they pray to the Weirwoods or they're praying to gods nearby, but the Weirwood definitely is like the main part of this religion. We find out later that Weirwoods don't die. Like unless you cut it down, a Weirwood will grow and grow and grow forever. And they even say it in this chapter, Winterfell, like at least the story goes, Winterfell was built around this tree. And again, that might be Winterfell was built here because this tree is also near a hot spring, and Winterfell needs to be near a hot spring. It seems like Winterfell is kind of in a perfect spot.
I mean, whoever built it knew, like, hey, we can inhabit this place.
And right here, chapter 2, 3, if you're counting the prologue, we get like hints of what Bran's ability will eventually be. They say, like Catelyn says, this tree has seen more shit. Like the eyes in this tree have seen more than anybody. It saw the walls get risen like around it for Winterfell. It saw like all the marriages that happen at Winterfell because that always happens in the Godswood. Like, and then like now where we're at the end of Dance with Dragons, we know Bran can see through the eyes of these trees. In the books, they make it a lot more Bran can see whatever the fuck he wants. But in the show, they make it seem like Bran can see whatever the fuck he wants. But I think in the books, at least at this point, Bran really can only see through the eyes of other people, or what the trees are seeing. Yeah.
Or maybe birds
or ravens.
Too. Yeah.
Or So if he's working into like things with eyes or the trees, which is probably why they're carving faces in these trees. If like the face needs to be there in order for them to see.
Yeah, that's definitely a connection there. I mean, what is it?
Is it curious then that the tree can only see in the direction where the eyes are carved?
It is kind of strange, right?
Like you're not looking at the back.
Behind
yeah.
It, yeah.
Why wouldn't you just cover the whole tree with eyes?
Make sure you carve some ears so you can hear what's happening behind you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely interesting. And one more thing I'm going to point out, as we read through these, when you read them the first time, it's all like, oh, there was this guy had like a weird dream that came true. And this thing was like kind of prophesized and then it came true. I'm gonna take anytime there's like a weird prophecy, and there wasn't any in this chapter, but
I mean, we kind of got the antler in the direwolf.
yeah,
That was in the Bran chapter.
that was in the Bran chapter.
All right, not in this chapter, but it's mentioned again that she was scared of.
Yep.
She heard about it. She mentioned it for sure.
Yeah, I'm thinking more dreams though, because and what I'm saying is we learn like at the very end of Feast that there's a guy who can go into your dreams and give you visions. We learn at the end of Dance with Bran that Bloodraven, again, I don't know if we should be calling him Bloodraven, but whatever is his name. Bloodraven has been given Bran visions, like through Weirwood powers. So I'm going to take a very skeptical look going through the rest of, like, as we do this reread. And again, I'm not going to bring it up with Kyle, but going forward, anytime there's a vision that we know comes true, was it a vision or was it somebody influencing somebody else? And then also, what's the point of giving a vision, right? If you can tell what is definitely going to happen in the future, what's the point in warning somebody about it, right?
I mean, maybe you need to influence a little bit. You need to get it going in their mind, kind of like Inception.
Exactly. Like it's either like if they think it's inevitable, maybe they'll subconsciously play to it, or maybe these. So far, it seems like every dream we get kind of comes true, but maybe it's like a warning that they want you to not do something, right? Like stay away from this.
Possibly. Yeah.
Well, I remember what I wanted to bring up. So Ned is saying, hey, we might have to go deal with Mance Rayder and send them away or whatever, fight them.
Yeah.
If he never gets pulled down to the south, he would still go fight them and kill a bunch of wildlings. But now, since he went to the south, Jon is the one that lets the wildlings in through the wall. So maybe that was part of Bloodraven's plan to kind of set up Ned going down south so the wildlings don't get killed at all.
Yeah, but so that makes
they
sense.
They save as many lives as possible.
That makes sense, but like, do we have any indication that like
we need the wildlings?
Well, and also, if Bloodraven wanted Ned south, okay, empty the hand position because obviously Ned's the second choice. But it doesn't seem like Bloodraven had any influence in Jon Arryn's death.
Doesn't seem like that.
Yeah,
it doesn't seem like that.
I also don't want to think.
That's the kind of stuff that I'm talking about. Like, that's what I'm going to be keeping a keen eye for in this read through. I've read through like three times probably these books, but I've never like had a keen eye for like, okay, could this have been? Could this vision have come from Bloodraven, and why would it have? Could this have come from Marwyn? Why would it have?
And
could
I don't want to
come from Quaithe. Why would it have?
I don't want to think that there's like 4 main puppeteers playing around with everybody in the realm. Like I want Jon and Dany and just everybody to have like their own willpower. Because if it's just if it's just 4 people battling out between dreams and visions and shit, it makes everyone else a lot less powerful.
Yeah, but like also when you have Marwyn dealing with dreams, if all Marwyn says is like, "Oh Sam, I've been watching you," and Maester Aemon, and Bloodraven says, "Oh, I've been watching you, Bran," like they have to be up to something. It's not like they're just visiting people and sending random dreams. But also there's kind of the argument like Dany, when she's in the House of the Undying, she has visions of the Red Wedding. What could those like if somebody's sending her those visions, how does that help at all? Dany cannot affect the Red Wedding when she's in Karth. She's half a world away. Like, what's the point in giving her visions of the Red Wedding?
Was that happening at the same time?
It happens like before the Red Wedding.
Maybe she's just seeing people dying over there, like kings are dying. A fake king, so be it. But he called himself king. Like, all right, one less person you have to fight when you come over.
No, but yeah, all Dany sees though is like I think a person with a wolf head sewn on him. To Dany, there's no way she's deciphering that as the Red Wedding. So like, say it is Quaithe giving her dreams.
Jorah might have. I think Jorah would have been able to be like, oh, well, the wolf, a dead wolf, that's a Stark. You know, he would have put 2 and 2 together.
It just seems like sometimes the dreams are totally like are right and they're used to foreshadow to the reader. But I think George R. R. Martin is a more clever writer than that. And I think if he wanted like Marwyn to be a schemer, then like a lot of the dreams that happen under moonlight, there's a theory that glass candles can only like affect like that the moon basically acts as satellites for glass candles, and that's how they can direct into people's minds.
Yeah, but also think if you're giving Ned a dream, Ned's literally wiping his hands and saying that's just a dream. I'm not worried about that at all.
Yeah, that's true.
Yes.
So how effective? How effective
he
could
doesn't
it be?
believe in signs.
Yeah. Just so going forward, that's definitely going to be something we keep an eye on in the second part of these podcasts is like visions and dreams and what do they mean? What are they foreshadowing? And is it possible that they're not just like a random occurrence and that they were given to them by somebody for a reason?
All right, another thing we can talk about is Liza running back to the Vale.
Yeah.
Just scared, which you don't know that. And that's why I kind of played it up like, it's just, going to bury her husband or whatever for Kyle. But we know that she's running scared of the Lannisters because she thinks the Lannisters killed Jon, but actually she knows who killed Jon, and it's just like a whole... Like, it's the biggest lie that started everything.
Yeah. Another thing I'm going to say in the future, we're doing another podcast with Kyle, and, say we're at the part where Tyrion gets put in jail for Joffrey's murder, and we're talking about it, right? And we don't want to spoil anything for Kyle, and I'm like, this is a bad example, because he definitely knows Tyrion gets out, right? So, but pretend he doesn't know that, and one of us could be like, yeah, like, here, I think, like, it's ridiculous that Tyrion's on trial, like, I think, like, the first time I read this, I thought that he was going to escape, right? If something like that comes up, I don't want one of you guys to be like, spoiler, oh, that's a spoiler. Like, if it comes out as like, oh, this is an opinion, or this is what I thought the first time I read it, and you say spoiler, that confirms it. You know what I mean? And that's the kind of stuff that we have to be careful for.
So, do you want us to try and trick him up with, like, false shit, or just talk?
So, there was a few times in this one when you were like, you've already said it like 2 or 3 times. You're like, oh, the first time I read this is what I thought. And a lot of times, the stuff that kind of sets up, like the Red Wedding or like Oberyn's death, right? Like, you could be like, oh yeah, I thought Oberyn was going to come down here to kill Tywin, but he's actually like getting along with him. Like, I thought he was going to be all about vengeance and trying to kill the Mountain. Like, that's what I was thinking the first time I read this. And if Glow's like, oh, spoiler, then Kyle knows that the Oberyn tries to kill the Mountain. I'm saying don't jump to conclusions. But like, if you pull a Glow and you're like, oh yeah, we know Daeron is Egg's brother. At that point,
I knew that. I knew it.
I got you, but at that point, it's like not an opinion, and it's like a spoilery. So, and also, I agree with the mislead thing, because a lot of times when you first read this, you did think something else. You thought Lysa Arryn was going to the Vale for no reason, or to keep her son safe. We know better. We know it's because Tywin Lannister wanted to foster Robin Arryn. Why do you think Tywin wants to foster Robin Arryn?
East and the West.
East and the West.
Marry Marcella?
Maybe marry Marcella, and then kill off... Marry Marcella, wait till they have a kid, kill off Robert, now you have the Warden of the East and the West. Something like that definitely is what Tywin's playing at. He's not just trying to be a nice guy, oh, come foster here. Anything else in this chapter? So one thing, Mance Rayder, we do know Mance Rayder is... He tells Jon in the later books, he's at the feast when Robert comes. Right. So let's...
Oh, shit.
When you guys read that chapter, let's keep a keen eye. He's probably there as a bard.
Yeah, that was crazy. That's crazy that when he brought that up to Jon, I'm like, what the fuck?
Again, that's the kind of shit, like, first book, there's shit that matters. So this chapter didn't have much, and we kind of talked a lot about just what we're going to be doing in the spoiler portion going forward, but that's the kind of shit that keep a keen eye out for. Read going forward.
One thing I want to keep an eye out for is anything mentioning the Isle Faces.
For sure.
Because I don't know anything about that. I just know there's Green Men, Weirwoods, and Isle Faces.
Yep.
I don't know if we will get much about them.
I think it's going to be hugely important going forward.
Yes.
And I think George R. R. Martin has even said that, it's kind of off topic, but kind of similar, Howland Reed has not been in the books at this point, because he couldn't find a way to put Howland Reed in a scene and not give away too much shit. He said, like, basically all the questions the readers have about Ned Stark and Jon and Lysa, or about Lyanna, he's like, Howland Reed has all the answers to that, so I can't put him in the book until I'm ready for everybody to know all those answers.
Yeah,
and I think he has, like, he lives close to the, not super close, but he's the closest Northman to the Isle of the Faces. He was at Tower of Joy, and we don't get much from him about him in any of these books. Do you
think he walked in the room when Lyanna was like giving Ned the baby? Do you think he was there with her? Probably, right? Like,
yeah, I think so.
Yeah, because you don't know if there's gonna be you assume there might be guards in that room. Who knows? So okay, so here's some things that one more thing, kind of like the Kyle part. The first time you read this, who do you think killed Jon Arryn?
Natural death. What do you mean?
You think Jon Arryn...
Well, he says dies quickly.
In this chapter, I mean this book, this first whole book, who do you think kills Jon Arryn at the end of Game of Thrones? Lannisters. But
Yeah.
we know
Littlefinger.
Littlefinger in order
Yes.
to start a conflict. That's the kind of shit that, like, we're going to be getting predictions like, oh, Kyle, what do you think happened to Jon Arryn? And although he knows Ned Stark died, he doesn't know who's behind what. And I think there's going to be a lot of surprises. So right now he thinks there's going to be a lot spoiled, but I think once we get about 20 chapters in, we'll start being able to get some
right
good
now
predictions out
Kyle
of it.
thinks that he's got a firm grip on what's going on in this world,
Yeah.
and we just have to tip in.
Yeah. Just a tip, baby.
JTT, love that game.
Love that game.
I love playing Just the Tip.
You and your roommate play that a lot?
Oh, dude, all the time.
All right.
I don't know if we got anything else in this chapter.
Yeah, let's not make this longer than it has to be. Catelyn sucks. It is what it is. Shortest chapter of the books. Thank the Lord. Moving on.
All right, next time we got Danny.
All right. Yes.
All right.
See you guys
Good
next
night,
time.
Westeros.
See you guys.
Appreciate all you guys for tuning in. Hit the like button on YouTube and follow us on Spotify. Get those followers up. Thanks everybody for listening, and we'll see you next time in Danny 1.
See ya.
Peace.